families, their communities and their country. For the pain, suffering and hurt of these stolen generations, their descendants and for their families left behind, we say sorry. To the mothers and the fathers, the brothers and the sisters, for the breaking up of families and communities, we say sorry. And for the indignity and degradation thus inflicted on a proud people and a proud culture, we say sorry. We, the Parliament of Australia, respectfully request that this apology be received in the spirit in which it is offered, as part of the healing of the nation. For the future, we take heart, resolving that this new page in the history of our great continent can now be written. We today take this first step by acknowledging the past and laying claim to a future that embraces all Australians. A future where this Parliament resolves that the injustices of the past must never, never happen again. A future where we harness the determination of all Australians, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, to close the gap that lies between us and life expectancy, educational achievement and economic opportunity. A future where we embrace the possibility of new solutions to enduring problems where old approaches have failed. A future based on mutual respect, mutual resolve and mutual responsibility. A future where all Australians, whatever their origins, are truly equal partners with equal opportunities and with an equal stake in shaping the next chapter in the history of this great country, Australia.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for taking the journey and joining us today on this very special occasion as we launch the Act for Kids Reconciliation Action Plan.
My name is Kieran Smith. I'm the Act for Kids Director of Service Partnerships and Growth. I'm a direct descendant of the Budgilla people of Fraser Island and proud to have been working with Act for Kids for over 14 years.
My name is Teresa Mace and I'm the Specialist Family Support Practitioner with the Act for Kids Brisbane North Intensive Family Support Program, and I'm very proud to be a member of that program. I'm also proud to acknowledge my own ancestry as a Koa Nation woman, spelt G-O-A on the maps if you're looking for it. It's in central North Queensland, commonly known as Dinosaur Country or the home of Qantas. On this auspicious day, we would like to acknowledge the ancestors of all those present here today to watch over us, keep us well until we return home safely to our families.
We are very excited to be your MCs today as we celebrate a significant milestone for Act for Kids. I would like to begin today's official proceedings by acknowledging the Gubbi Gubbi people, the traditional landowners of the country where we meet today.
As always, we thank them for having us here today and pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. To officially welcome us to country, I would like to introduce Lyndon Davis and the Gubbi Gubbi Dance Group.
Sorry, was that me? Oh, no, sorry. Breaking everything. Yo, wanya ngalam janangku, wanya yanyaran gan, kowana. Karinanami jojo mo birono, kayan man morangai jagun gun gan yongo, bidiana naju, barnji jimmy, chakan barano juno, jundul goji. Yo way. Wanya. Nara. Hello. My name is Lyndon Davis, descendant of the traditional custodians of the district that we're at the moment. I speak on behalf of my great-great-grandmother, who was born on the Malula River in the 1850s. And I've got my family here today, all descendants from that lady. And so, really privileged to be here, this special occasion to welcome everyone, and a special welcome to Honourable Mr. Kevin Rudd. I think, that was very touching, that, that speech there, because that's a little bit of history in our family there, coming from the stolen generation, and it was good to get that acknowledgement by our Prime Minister at the time. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's very emotional that, you fellas. I think about my great grandmother, my nan's mother, and I knew her in that, but she had definitely that history, which definitely sort of has effect on some of us, younger generation to follow. But definitely what doesn't sort of makes us stronger there, and we definitely very resilient people, and so we're very lucky that we have those people to look up to as role models, and to to keep us fellas going strong too your way. So we're going to sing him up for the ancestors. We're going to use this song as a welcoming gesture. This one is sung throughout the whole southeast Queensland districts. A lot of brothers, dance troops sing this song, and we'd like to use it on this special occasion as a welcoming gesture. Welcome all the good people, welcome all the good spirits. This one here, everyone knows this one. Gari Nina Nami, you fellas know it. If you know it, sing along there, hum along. But it's the language of this landscape, and we appreciate to get the opportunity to sing it for you here today. Gari Nina Nami, Jojo Mo Birono, Yayo, Biriana Naju, Barnji Jimmy, Jakan Barano Juno, Jundul Goji. Yo! Shh. Yo Karen na me hajamo berono, Karen na me hajamo berono, Karen na me jamo berono, Karen na me hajamo berono, Kayaman morangai, he jagun ganyongo. Kayaman morangai, jagun ganyongo. Kayaman morangai, jagun ganyongo. Karen na me hajamo berono, Karen na me jamo berono. Bere hango na jo, barnji jime. 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 Chakan bardan jano, jundul goji. Chakan bardan jano, jundul goji. Chakan bardan jano, jundul goji. Karen na me hajamo berono, Karen na me jamo berono. Chop. All right, can we do one more croppery? Oh, God, you fellas, we just... and this place here, Kawana, the place of the wildflowers. I was born in Nambour, and I know that Mr. Kevin Rowe went to Nambour High School too there, yes. My missus did too, she's over there. No. Yeah, Nambour in our language, I was born there. It means sleep, bed, or otherwise known as the red flowering paperbark tree. And that paperbark was the bark that we used for sleep on, perfect bed, that one. That's comfortable, that fella. But Nambour. And I live in Yandina. Yandina refers to the crossing place of the Maroochy River. Maroochy means black swan. Malula, where great-great-grandmother come from, that talks about the red-bellied black snake. Your way. And we are Gubbi Gubbi or Kabi Kabi speaking people. And I tell everyone, well, I just got to say this because Arnie would want you to know this. It's not G, Gubbi Gubbi. It's not K, Kabi Kabi. It's in between those two. But there is not one, eh? Yeah, there is. There is one. It's the Kookaburra call. That's the sound. That's the accent, language of this landscape. Your way. So we're going to sing up Gunga, the other bird that's around here as well, the sea eagle. We love singing this song. We love talking about him, empowering him, strengthening him, power of the spoken word. Mullet runs come up this way, and all the time the eagle is the first one to begin the hunt. All the eagles, Brahmini kites, ospreys, but the big white-bellied sea eagle. Gunga is its name. That's the sound that it calls out when it's flying over the top of us to tell us when to start the hunt. And so the lead fish come through, and the followers are following those leaders as they come from those southern waters up into warm temperature around winter time. Yeah, that baby knows. No, that's my nephew there, Jarlai, Lyndon too. Look out, namesake. He's trying to speak because I'm speaking, eh? No, Gavin. Well, you're going to be speaking soon, there, nephew. All right, but that's an awesome song talking about how mullet runs, how everyone took advantage of the mullet runs, but we'd only hunt where the sea eagles hunt. Gave us the permission to hunt, not to hunt the leaders, but only to hunt the followers. Leaders have immunity because they're the ones leading those followers into these warm temperature waters. So we pay respects to the sea eagle, the red stringy bark tree, which shares the name as the mullet fish, connected in the dreaming. Gunga, dance of the sea eagle. Ganga yangan go banga jura, dereja jaraman hakiran yangan. Ganga bijale yo bayaman jura, baku. Ganga yangan go banga jura, dereja jaraman hakiran yangan. Ganga bijale yo bayaman jura, oh ganga garaja, ta. Ganga yangan go banga jura, dereja jaraman hakiran yangan. Ganga bijle yo bayaman jura, oh ganga garaja, Ganga yangan go banga jura, dereja jaraman hakiran yangan. Ganga bijle yo bayaman jura, oh ganga garaja. So once again, on behalf of the families, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and Wanya, welcome.
How good was that, eh?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Lyndon and the Gubbi Gubbi crew for such a wonderful welcome here today. Today we're delighted to be in the presence of many special guests. We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners and elders here with us today. Of course, Lyndon and the Gubbi Gubbi crew and to all other Gubbi Gubbi people here, welcome. Thank you for welcoming us here today. Mr. Barry Walden here, Gunga leader, traditional owner from Doomadgee in the Gulf of Carpentaria. Griffith Patrick, Yiri Yoront, traditional owner, and our reference group chairman from Kowanyama on Western Cape. Mr. Travan Lee, CEO of North Coast Aboriginal Corporation for Community Health, and Darcy and the team from Refocus. The Deputy Principal from Chancellor College and your representatives, so welcome here today to you folks as well. We're also going out on live stream today to our centres across the country, and joining us in our Cairns Centre today, we've got Uncle SBS, Sid Shortjoe from Pomperow joining us there in Cairns, and of course Ernest Madjo as well from Napranum joining the crew in Cairns today. So welcome to you all.
Thank you. We would like to welcome our very special guests, including the 26th Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Mr Kevin Rudd, Mayor of Sunshine Coast and President of the Local Government Association Queensland, Mark Jameson, Natalie Lewis, Commissioner of Queensland Family and Child Commission. We are proud to have our ambassadors as Kay McGrath, Detective Inspector John Rouse, Bruce and Denise Morecambe. Also fortunate for us, we have representatives from the Australian Centre to Counter Child Exploitation. On behalf of Police Commissioner for the Queensland Police Service, we have Superintendent Craig Hawkins. Welcome. NDIS, Integrated Family Youth Services Administration, Budget Direct, Act for Kids and Youth Thrive staff and board members.
Today is a very special day for Act for Kids. It marks 4 years of hard work and dedication by the members of our Reconciliation Plan Action Committee, Reconciliation Action Plan Committee, who have worked tirelessly to present the Reconciliation Action Plan to you today that we're all very proud of. To the committee, we thank you.
We also like to thank Reconciliation Australia for joining us on this 4-year journey, for their support in completing and ratifying our Reconciliation Action Plan. To talk more about the significance of our plan and what it means to the team at Act for Kids, we'd like to please welcome to the stage the CEO, Dr. Katrina Lyons.
Thanks, Teresa and Kieran, and thank you to Lyndon and the crew for the wonderful welcome to Gubbi Gubbi Country. And thank you to and welcome to all the previously acknowledged guests who are here to celebrate today with us. I would also like to thank the Act for Kids team who put together this wonderful launch event, and they've worked very hard on pulling it together. Today is a culmination of years of commitment to reconciliation at Act for Kids. We have strong partnerships with First Nations traditional owners, elders, communities and organisations in all the areas we work, some existing for decades. The Reconciliation Action Plan is our pledge to not only continue to work in partnership and support self-determination of First Nations peoples, but to do better. Our Reconciliation Action Plan is a critical milestone for our organisation in our commitment to improving the lives of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and families and ending the overrepresentation of First Nations peoples in the child protection system. We are extremely honoured that of our 450 staff, there are more than 100 team members who identify as First Nations peoples working tirelessly to protect children in Australia. Today's launch is a fitting celebration of them, their culture, their hard work and contribution to making real impacts in the lives of First Nations children. Our Reconciliation Plan is not just a document. It is a heartfelt commitment to make positive and lasting change, and it will guide Act for Kids over the next 2 years as we strive to achieve our goals. Act for Kids opened its first out-of-home care centre called a Safe House at Napranum in 2009. Napranum's in the Cape York Peninsula. Since then, we have committed to helping as many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children as possible through our Safe Kids program. This is a program delivered in partnership with traditional owners of Cape York and Gulf communities. Safe Kids now has 6 safe houses, 5 are located in communities in the Cape and Gulf and 1 in Cairns. Last year, our Act for Kids team supported nearly 45,000 people, of which nearly 30% identified as Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children, parents and carers. Sadly, we know this is a figure that is not the true measure of the children needing support. 1 in 6 Indigenous children receive child protection services across Australia. This is almost 8 times the rate for non-Indigenous children. It often means that children are removed from their families, disconnected from their community and their culture. Today, I'm proud to lead a team committed to doing what we can to help Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander children and families in Australia. Our Reconciliation Action Plan will guide our organisation through the next few years and continue to improve the lives of First Nations children. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Honourable Dr. David Hamill, Chairman of the Act for Kids Board, to say a few words.
Well, thanks very much, Kat. And I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we meet, thank the Gubbi Gubbi people for their very warm welcome to all of us here today, and also acknowledge the traditional owners who could not be here today, but who are listening online and with whose support Act for Kids delivers very important services into some of the most remote communities in the state. To all of our other guests also, I extend a very warm welcome. And of course, I'm delighted that my old colleague, actually we're not that old, are we, Kevin? We're about the same age as my memory serves me correctly, that Kevin Rudd could join us today for what is a very important occasion for Act for Kids, but also for reconciliation in Australia. This document, as you've heard, has sort of been some time in the making, but it's in making this document, the staff, the communities of Act for Kids have worked tirelessly to bring about something to which they are and which this organisation is totally committed. It provides us with a plan to improve, a plan to work towards that important goal that we all cherish, that is, of reconciliation. And as you've heard, the team have been working now for some 4 years to bring this document about. But document is one thing. It's a plan. It's about what we do from here that is really important. It's the way forward. And if you go and look through the document, you'll see in a whole range of different areas of Act for Kids activities, the plan provides us with a way forward. And you'll see that different people within the organisation are charged with delivering the various objectives and goals in the plan. And the Board of Act for Kids is no exception. You'll see within that plan a commitment to having First Nations people as members of the Board of Act for Kids. Now, it's not the first time First Nations people will have been on the board, but it's ebbed and flowed. Well, not any longer. And in fact, we're well advanced to achieving, in fact, actually outperforming the commitment in the plan. And as a board, we are very thrilled about that this process is well advanced and following our achievement or of a couple of necessary hurdles that all directors have to pass over, we'll be in a position to make those exciting announcements. As I said, this is a very special milestone for Act for Kids. And really, there was no one more fitting to join with us on this occasion than the former Prime Minister of Australia, Kevin Rudd. Not only are we meeting here almost in Kevin's backyard, and the Nambour connections have already been mentioned this morning, but to have the context of the occasion so dramatically drawn to our attention from that footage from the apology, I think you'll join with me in saying there could be no one better to launch our Reconciliation Action Plan. Because notwithstanding the apology, there is so much more to be done. There are still families that are being disrupted, not in the same way and for the same reasons as in the past. But Act for Kids is very active in working to put families back together again. And we are committed to looking out for and working with children and families, all children and families, but we have a very particular role to play with those families in those communities on the Cape and around the Gulf. And I want to make this clear, this undertaking clear. We are committed to self-determination in respect of those services. And as a board of Act for Kids, we are absolutely and totally committed to that transition. We value the work of our community reference groups, without whose guidance we couldn't deliver those services in an appropriate manner in those communities. And my undertaking to those communities as we move to self-determination over the governance of those services is that the Act for Kids board is committed to that transition, but will only do so on the terms of the local community. The Act for Kids board does not have a predetermined plan about what the model should be, but the model should evolve out of the consultations and discussions, the input and advice from those traditional owners and custodians and the people who play such an important role on our reference group. Because that, to me, is what true partnership is about. And that is wholly consistent with the tenet of our reconciliation action plan. So, in launching the plan today, as I said, I am so thrilled that we have with us Kevin Rudd, the former Prime Minister of Australia and someone who I know holds these issues dear to his heart. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kevin Rudd.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all. And so good to be home. So very good to be home. And I'd begin by acknowledging the first Australians on whose lands we meet and whose cultures we celebrate as the oldest continuing cultures in human history. David Hamill, you haven't changed a bit. We are equally youthful. We go back to the Mesolithic period in Queensland politics, both having worked closely with our dear and lost friend Wayne Goss back then. And thank you for the work you're doing for Act for Kids. Good stuff, mate. Good to see Stephen Beckett here, who I've known since he was in short pants, and a bunch of others as well. Bruce and Denise, where are you? Lovely to see you both. That's the Morecambes. Near and dear to my heart, Teresa's heart, and the work that you continue to do for the protection of children. To our local political representatives, the Mayor of the local council, Councillor Mark Jamieson, I can't see where you are, Mark, but to the local member, Rob Skelton, who sends his apologies today from the adjoining seat of Nicklin, and so many others as well. But in particular to our local Indigenous leaders. It's good to be able to share this time with you. Lyndon, where are you? That's you up the back there? Yeah, you were one of the bad boys at Nambour High, weren't you? Yeah, together with me. As we listen to these local names, it's an extraordinary reflection on Aboriginality and indigeneity. For me, growing up was Yumundi. That's where I went to primary school. That's where we had a farm. I then went to high school in Nambour. I played for a cricket team in Yandina. I learned to swim in a river called Maruchi. We are here at Kawana, not far from Malula. And so the story goes on. The absolute infusion of Indigenous languages into our everyday lives is, I think, one of the great privileges in being Australian. And when we have the opportunity and the privilege to listen to Aboriginal song and dance, as we just did before, from the Gubbi Gubbi people, for those of us who are whitefellas, recent arrivals, last couple of hundred years, our Indigenous brothers and sisters have been here for 70,000 years. That's quite a long time between drinks when you think about it, 70,000 and 200. So we are recent arrivals. But when we hear song and when we see dance, and we hear language and we see the preservation of these names, we are reaching back into the dream time literally. And for those of us who are white folks, it is a singular privilege to be able to touch the most ancient origins of this continent, to reach out and to feel and to touch and to see and to experience. So to our Aboriginal brothers and sisters who are here with us today, thank you for that continuing privilege. When I say to folks around the world that we share this continent, which we now call Australia, once called Gondwanaland, with the oldest continuing cultures on Earth, there is a moment of magic in being able to say that, the oldest continuing cultures on Earth. So thank you, our Aboriginal brothers and sisters, for sharing this land with us. And I would encourage those in local political authority in this part of Australia where I grew up and I call home still, to be able to tell more and more the extraordinary local Indigenous stories of this little pocket of our country called Australia. How did these names come into being? Where did the Gubbi Gubbi land stop and start? When did they first come here in terms of the first Aboriginal wave of migration to this continent some 70,000 years ago? These are stories which we'd all like to know. Very few of us do. So I'd encourage people to develop the local storytelling, including the difficult stories of first contact with us folks as well, whitefellas. Reconciliation is a flash word. Some people get confused by it. It's not all that confusing, even though it sounds a bit flash. It's simply about respecting each other deeply, not superficially, just deeply, as our fellow members of the human family and fellow members of our local community, and understanding the diversity which we bring together in this community here. Because, friends, unfortunately it wasn't always like that. The stain of racism on our nation's soul is still real. The apology, which we saw something of just before, was one step in the direction towards reconciliation. Other steps have been taken as well. Mine is not unique. There have been many others. But translating the spirit and the reality of the apology into things that work on the ground is the business of reconciliation action plans. They take the concept of respect, the concept of being together, working together, living together, celebrating together, and dealing with our differences together, into the nuts and bolts of daily life and work. And that's why I commend those who have spent their time putting this plan together. I know Reconciliation Australia very well from my work at the National Apology. Therese and I have set up the National Apology Foundation for Indigenous Australians as our own not-for-profit. One of the things we're committed to is to telling the stories of local reconciliation right across the country. And our daughter Jess is currently engaged in working up storybooks for young kids, white kids, black kids, brindle kids, whoever kids. Great stories about local Indigenous kids, and frankly, great stories about reconciliation as well. So it ceases to be something out there and is something real that we can touch in our everyday lives. So this is good stuff, and I commend those of you right across Australia who have put time and effort into producing this Reconciliation Action Plan for Act for Kids, which is where I'll conclude my remarks. Act for Kids themselves. Well done, guys and girls, right across the country. Well done for the work that you do in being a voice for the voiceless. That's actually what you are. When you are out there, 450 of you across 30 or 40 centres across Australia, and you are engaged in 40 or 50,000 interventions a year with little people who cannot defend themselves, that matters. That really does matter. All the stuff that we go on with in our national political life, that really matters. So for those of you in the coalface of doing this work each day, and those of you who are engaged in each individual case management of a living human being, a little child with the world as their oyster, but for one reason or another have copped abuse of one form or another and whose lives are at risk, thank you from me as a former Prime Minister of Australia for the work, the quiet work you do every day. Every day. And so with those reflections on our local Aboriginality, reflections on apology and reconciliation and bringing us all together as one people in all of our diversity, and in honour of the work done for Act for Kids, it gives me enormous pleasure as a kid from Yamundi, a kid from Nambour, to launch this, the Reconciliation Action Plan for Act for Kids. I thank you.
How's that? Thank you, Kevin. Great speech, as always. Okay, moving right along. We would now like to introduce to the stage Uncle Barry Waldron, a proud member of the Act for Kids team, and a Gungalede, traditional owner and chairman of the reference group from Dumaji.
Barry will provide just the official thank you there to close out today's proceedings. And just a quick note, Barry's been involved with Act for Kids as a community consultant, cultural consultant for well over a decade. He's worked very closely with Act for Kids. Thank you.
Look, I'd just like to thank everybody, and especially the Gubbi Gubbi people for allowing me on country here this morning. First of all, I'd just like to give you a quick introduction to who I am. I'm Barry Walden. I'm from the Gungalita people in the Gulf of Carpentaria, in a little community up there called Dumaji. Obviously, those words that Kevin, thank you very much, very touching words. And also, I'd just like to recap on, in 2008, of your speech, the apology. It was so touching. I sat in my lounge on that particular day, and it was a moving time for all of my people up there in Dumaji. It's such a small little community, but it meant so much. Thank you. Also, I'd like to thank David, Katrina, who allow me to be up here and presenting myself, and also as an advocator for what Act for Kids do in communities such as mine. We have a safe house up there in Dumaji, and it's been there for the last 10 years or more. I've worked with Act for Kids for a millennium, so I've been there for 10 years doing exactly what the Reconciliation Action Plan is all about. I've been a part of it for 10 years. Also, I think it's about, obviously, what David and Katrina allow me to do too as well with Act for Kids is reconnecting with children back into homes. We call it, reunification to children that have been taken away and now brought back home. With culture, country, it's quite a big thing, because that's identity. That's identity to these children that have no identity. And also, look, I do recognise there are still a lot of work to be done. around traditional owners, engaging and trust and building those relationships and making them a lot stronger in our communities. So in saying that, you know, I recognise that, and I know the board and also Katrina and her team in Act for Kids are doing that every day of the week, striving to make a difference and make a change as well. And also, like I said, it's such a big feat today to have myself standing up here before everyone here, you fine people, and talking about reconciliation, you know, the reconciliation action plan, you know. Like I said, I've been a part of it for 10 years. So in saying that, I'd just like to thank everybody for allowing me here too as well, and thank you.
Okay. Before I throw back to Kieran, I would like to ask those in the room that were a part of this process, could you please stand so we can acknowledge you? Miss Marion? And others? Put your hand up. Thank you. It's been a long journey. We lost a few people along the way, but we got there, and I thank you very much for that. So, yes, now I will hand back officially to Kieran, and thank you for joining us today, and travel home safe.
Thanks, Teresa. That officially concludes our launch proceedings today. We'd ask you all to join us for some refreshments, and just in closing things out, Kevin, if we could invite you back, please, and we've got a gift that we'd love to share and, with you on behalf of Act for Kids. So thank you, folks. Have a wonderful day, and please join us for some refreshments outside and mingle. Thank you.